Welcome back. You're watching the Urban Debate. Now, we do understand, of course, that politics has taken front and center in Chennai, and there is a lot of debate about the change of guard that's taking place in Chennai. But there's something far worse, far more dangerous that is happening in Chennai that has been shoved to the back end of all of our newspapers and television channels. The fact that that oil spill continues to be a problem in Chennai. Hundreds of civic workers, we understand, are still working around the clock. The students and the layman volunteers have now been moved off-site. But there's something that is very worrying, viewers, and I want to share this with you. The civic workers who are working around the clock to make Chennai's beaches oil-free in that sludge, we found out that these workers are cleaning the cancerous sludge with minimal protective gear. The government is saying the workers have been provided with gumboots and gloves, but is that enough? They tell us that their skin is burning, that they can't breathe the fumes coming out of this sludge, that they have not been given protective jackets or overalls. All they have are gloves and boots. And a lot of these so-called civic workers, we discovered, are actually fishermen who are terrified that they will lose their livelihood if the place is not cleaned up, which is why they are standing knee-deep in that cancerous water. They've not been told that they run a risk. Our reporter went back to the site today, and she was the only one there. She sent us this report.
11 days after the oil spill, we are trying to stock up the situation at Ennur Port. DG Secretary yesterday said that 90% of the work is being done, but still people on ground, they say that it will take 3 more days to complete this process. Also, student volunteers are not allowed to be a part of this mission anymore, and only the government employees are working here. And people here are being given gloves and boots and everything. But despite that, the oil is splashing on them. So they say that awareness program is not being given to them. And despite an uproar raised by Magicbricks Now and even DMK that coming into direct contact with the oil sludge would lead to cancer, not many here know about the impact. And they say that advisory has not been given to them beforehand. In Chennai, Shweta for Magicbricks Now.
நான் டைரக்ட் ஷிப்பிங் கம்பெனிலேருந்து ஒர்க் பண்ணியிருக்கேன். நாங்கள் 30ஆந்தேதிலேருந்து ஒர்க் பண்ணிட்டுருக்கோம். லாஸ்ட் மண்டேலேருந்து இங்கே ஒர்க் பண்ணிட்டுருக்கோம். நாங்கள் மேன் பவர் ஒரு 40-50 பேர் வந்து ஒர்க் பண்ணிட்டுருக்கோம். இப்போது 2 டேஸாக வந்து மேன் பவர் மேனுவலாக தான் எடுத்துகிட்டு இருந்தோம். ஸோ அது 2 டேஸ் அப்புறம் வந்து பெங்களூர்லேருந்து மிஷின் கொண்டு வந்தாங்க. மிஷின் கொண்டு வந்து மிஷின் ஹைட்ராலிக் மிஷின் வச்சு அது பற்றி எடுத்துகிட்டு இருக்கோம். அது இல்லாமல் இப்போ எக்ஸ்ட்ரா வந்து வாலண்டியர்ஸு, ஃபயர் சர்வீஸ் மேன், இப்போ நிறைய டீம் வந்துருந்தாங்க. காலேஜ் ஸ்டூடெண்ட் வந்துட்டாங்க. பட் ஆனால் இப்போ வந்து 2 டேஸாக வந்து யாருமே வர்றதில்லை. வேறு இப்போ மேன் பவர் ரொம்ப கம்மியாக இருக்குது. இப்போ 90% முடிஞ்சிருக்கு. பட் 10% இருக்குது. என்னென்னா இப்போ ஈவினிங்கில் வந்து கடலில் சீட்டு அதிகமாக இருக்கிறதுனால வந்து கல்லுக்குள்ளே இருக்க ஆயில் வந்து திருப்பி வெளியே வருது. வெளியே வரும்போது இப்போ ஈவினிங்கில் வந்து கம்மியாக இருக்குது. ஸோ மார்னிங் வந்து பார்க்கும்போது இன்னும் கூடுதலாக எக்ஸ்ட்ரா ஆகிடுது. இப்போ நாங்கள் இது எடுக்கணும்னா எங்களுக்கு வந்து ஒரு 3 நாள் டைம் எடுக்கும். உடனே இப்போ எங்களுக்கு மேன் பவர் கம்மியாக இருக்குது.
க்ளவுஸ் கொடுத்தாங்க, கேப் கொடுத்தாங்க, கம்பூட் கொடுத்தாங்க. அதுதான் அவள்கிட்ட கொடுத்துருக்காங்க.
இப்போ இது உடம்புல படும்போது இது வந்து கஷ்டமா இருக்கு.
இந்த இடத்துல பட்டுருக்குமா லைட்டாக எரியுது.
உள்ளே போனால் மேலே போடுது, லைட்டாக மூச்சு திணறல் படுது. கை குளிச்சாதான் போதானா 2 நாள் அது அப்படியே போகும்.
இதனால நோய்கள் வரும் அப்படின்னு சொல்றாங்க. அதை பற்றி உங்களுக்கு
அவங்க எதுவுமே சொல்லலை. அதை பற்றி
எந்த அவேர்னஸ் எதுவுமே சொல்லலை.
கை க்ளோஸு ஒரு ஷூஸ் மட்டும் தான் சொன்னாங்க.
I want to point out to our audience some research that we've brought up. The 1989 Exxon Valdez oil spill in Alaska, the people who cleaned it up with protective gear all died early. We understand now from various research that has been done that when cleaning up oil spills, people are exposed to various diseases that could lead to arthritis, nausea, respiratory tract irritation, and even cancer. These workers that you're looking at on your screen are being paid 500 rupees a day and being given no information at all about the risks that they are taking on. They're also, obviously, from the footage that we're looking at, and I'm pointing this out again, this is footage that was shot today. They're also obviously not being given the protective gear that they need to have. Most of them, like I told you, told us that they're worried about the fact that the fish will not lay eggs this year, and they will not be able to fish, which is why they're out there saving their own livelihoods. And the government, that is very preoccupied right now in a power struggle, is letting them do this with absolutely no conscience. Where is the conscience right now of the state government, of the central government, of the Coast Guard, of the authorities that are actually meant to be looking after this? Why are they allowing still fishermen to get into the water? And that is a question we will continue to ask until we get some sort of semblance of an answer from any of these authorities. Joining me on the show this evening, Vimelendu Jha is an environmentalist from Delhi. Captain Sandeep Kalia is the advisor, the Director General of Shipping, who joins me in Mumbai. Ramachandra Menon is a marine engineer. Rishi Agarwal is also an environmentalist in Mumbai, and Dr. Sanjeev Mehta is a pulmonologist at Lilavati Hospital. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the show. I want to start obviously with Captain Kalia. Captain Kalia, explain to our viewers one more time the kind of risks that we're looking at and why over a week after this thing happened, we still don't have the gear on the ground to protect these people from the oil.
Yeah, hello. Basically, we lack awareness. Like I said the last time in the debate, the problem is that adequate training and experts are required for such kind of challenging and complex jobs. Here we have seen the volunteers pitch in to clear the oil. The college students like from HIMT, Chennai and other marine colleges in Chennai, plus NGOs and volunteers had come in. It is more of a rush of adrenaline to come and clean the beaches because it's their city, it's their country. However, this is a specialized jobs. It requires a lot of training. There are a lot of hazards getting in touch with oil, and all this, there was no time to tell them that this is a hazardous job. And possibly that statement has not gone down well with the people who had fished in, including the fishermen. So here the hazards were overlooked just because the adrenaline was high and people wanted to contain the spill and make sure that their beaches, their environment, the sea life and everything around are safe.
I don't know if I want to buy that justification that the adrenaline was high and that's why we allowed it to happen. Vimelendu Jha?
Yes, as in, it's a very, very dangerous normal that we are actually talking about. We're actually saying that almost 90% of the mess has been cleared, and we don't even know what exactly does it actually mean, because so far we don't even know how much oil was spilled. So there's no statistics, no number at all on day 11 that we have. We haven't heard a single statement from our central environment of minister, Mr. Dave. We don't really know where he is. So it's a fractured governance. It's a very sad state that we're talking about. And imagine it's almost really fading from the collective conscience, collective news of the country. So, it's these people, these fishermen who will actually at the end of the day suffer. Is those fishes and turtles that will suffer, and these are the poorest of the poor, the voiceless creatures of our country that we're talking about. So imagine on day 11, not a single head has rolled, not a single person has actually been asked questions about how did it happen, why did it happen, what can we actually do so that it doesn't happen again. There are two things here. One is the collision and therefore the oil spill, and the other is day 11 of cleaning and non-reporting and everything else, and the third is how volunteers and fishermen are actually being subjected to something as toxic as this. And there's enough evidence that we have from all around the world, scientific studies that say that almost 20 to 25 years of a lifespan, as in a person lives less, primarily because of exposure to oil spill. So it's sad that
yes,
in a modern day India, in one of the biggest cities that we're talking about, one of the oldest ports that we are talking about, this is the state of affairs. And now the country is Chennai is actually discussing its politics and not its people.
I want to bring in Rishi. Rishi, we've been told over and over again that this is a very specialized job that should be done by specialists. We understand those workers are either fishermen who are working because they want to, or hired workers who are being paid 500 rupees a day. These are obviously not specialists, and these are lives that no government is taking seriously at this point.
So I think the footage which was shown, Faye, was really absolutely shocking, of these fishermen or volunteers or civic workers, whatever you call them, being knee deep and waist deep in waters. And it just goes to show the absolutely careless attitude. I mean, you're showing this on day 11, this is not on day 1. And by day 11, we've discussed enough that how dangerous and how toxic this sludge is. And even when the last time we discussed this 3 days back, the clear suggestion we gave was that there should be a clear advisory, there should be a cordoning of that area. So I mean, I'm really shocked with what is being shown on the television, and clearly, I mean, it shows that we're just not bothered. So that's a very sorry state of affairs.
Well, let me bring in Dr. Sanjeev Mehta. Dr. Mehta, what you're looking at on your screen right now, and I'm going to run that footage until we drive the point home, and until the people of Chennai demand more accountability from their government. Now, that sort of oil is settling at the bottom of the ocean. It is poisoning the fish. It is poisoning the water. And it is certainly killing those poor men that we're looking at right now. Now, what sort of risks are we looking at, Doctor?
Yeah, Faye, you make a very important point. What we see here is really a disaster. If it was not a disaster, it would be a joke. The way these people are not even protected. I mean, the word protection is absolutely inadequate to cover what these people are exposed to. So let me tell you how the humans would be exposed to, and then the animals. The humans would get direct toxic inhalation. You don't see a single mask out there. They would get exposure from contact. They are knee deep, and a gumboot is not going to do anything for them. The exposure to the whole skin is there. Now, there is an immediate exposure, which is the immediate burning, the rash, the itching that will happen. But once the oil gets in, it's going to get into the system and it will stay there. We know that benzene products can create cancers in the long run. So I think this is a huge health disaster for the individual in the short term. In the long term, they're going to have the same seafood and the fish and the creatures that have been taking this oil. That leads to another long-term overdose of petroleum products. So these poor guys are going to have it. They're going to fish that fish. If they survive, they're going to have more exposure. You look at the total exposure, I think it's going to be terrible. And what you're doing is really so remarkable. Yeah. So
I just also want to understand, there's been a lot of brouhaha in Chennai about whether or not the fish is safe. And we actually had a minister go to the fishing village, have someone fry him a piece of fish and eat it in front of everybody to prove to everyone that the fish is in fact safe and you should be eating it. Dr. Mehta, has he done a massive disservice to his entire city?
I completely agree. I think this is wrong. First of all,
ignorance is a bliss.
First of all, we don't know where that fish came from. We don't know if the fish had that immediate exposure. We're talking about fish that is going to grow up over there. That is the newborn fish in the next 1 or 2 months. That is going to have a cumulative dose. We know that there is arsenic and lead in so much of the fish that's on the toxic coasts of many countries. I think just doing this as a photo op, you rightly put it, great disservice.
Great disservice. Ramachandra Menon, again, this was a very good point that Rishi Agarwal and Vimelendu Jha pointed out, that 11 days after all of this has happened, we don't know what caused it. We don't know who was responsible. We don't know who's been held responsible. As a marine engineer, do you believe that this was negligence and someone should have been pulled up by now? We should have seen someone go behind bars?
Definitely, it's an act of negligence. I'm not talking about the collision. The spread of the oil onto the rocks, that is sheer negligence. See, if you have to achieve something, there has to be some excellence. To achieve excellence in something, you have to have an intelligent execution of the job, which is lacking. It is very evident.
So negligence. So you're saying that if there was a collision, it could have been contained in the first day, in the second day, in the third day. Now we're on day 11. Is this the Coast Guard's responsibility? Is it negligence on behalf of the Coast Guard?
I would not directly blame the Coast Guard. Even the port authorities should be well equipped with skimmers at least, by which you could have contained the oil right out at sea, about 20 kilometers. I think the oil has traveled, which has caused all this slurry and all formation on the rocks. That could have been prevented, because now the task is Herculean. If it was skimmed out at sea, this would not have come ashore. Definitely not, because with the tide, and if you arrested the oil there at sea where the collision occurred, this would not have collected onto the rocks, which is now a task which is double-fold, or 10 times more time consuming if it's not tackled intelligently. Like last time, I think we had a talk about the bacterial, which was proven and which is commercially available, and that's one of the
there is
things
also
that
a certain amount of doubt in whether or not this 90% claim that various government agencies have told us that 90% of the slick has been cleaned up, that only 10% is to go. Every time our reporter goes to the beach, she's given a different estimate: 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and the workers there tell us that they clean up all day, they go home. When they come back, the high tide at night has brought in fresh slick. It's now on the beach, it's on the rocks, it's become that much more difficult to clean. So Rishi Agarwal, is it possible that none of the authorities actually know how much oil is in the water, or are they lying to us?
So, Faye, like I was mentioning earlier, I wanted to highlight that the Ennore Port website, even till today, shows a 28th January press release, which was the initial report which said that no, nothing great has happened and it's a minor collision and no environmental damage, etc. So that's in a sense, I used that as a metric for the level of seriousness within the port authorities. I think the website of the port authorities is the one which should be giving us all of this data, rather than all of us grappling in the dark and making conjecture and trying to figure out things. So this is not really a very, a responsible way of behaving. The website today is available and you can give so much information.
We keep talking about the lackadaisical attitude towards the environment. And let me just point this out to our audience today. I understand that everybody in the country is discussing Chennai's politics at this point. Let me also point out to you that everybody in Chennai is discussing politics. So when we called the state government to ask them how much oil has been cleaned up, when we called the government to ask them for a representative to be part of this conversation, when we called to ask for why haven't the people on the beach been given gear, because fundamentally you are poisoning your people. We got no response. Nobody was free to talk to us today because they're all preoccupied with the politics. Vimelendu Jha, this is the priority in this country. Politics and grabbing power with zero responsibility. Here is a city that is without conscience, poisoning its people through the fish and the water and poisoning the people who are standing on the beach. And they absolutely do not care.
Absolutely. So, imagine, and this is, by the way, we're talking about Chennai, as you had said earlier as well, that there are almost 5 such oil spills or such collisions that have taken place in the past. As a country, 75% of our oil import happens through the sea route. And this is our preparedness, this is our state of affairs, and this is how we quickly forget. These are our priorities. So, by the way, it's ecological damage, there is economic damage, there's damage to national security. All of these things together is what we are actually talking about, and it's all become a joke. Nobody is actually talking about the impact that this would have. And imagine on your program a couple of days ago, the AIDMK spokesperson said that they will not really, they'll actually have an advisory. But day 2, the next day, the day after, nothing at all. There's no advisory at all. It's the fishermen who are actually fending for themselves. They, in their heightened state of, citizenship and for their livelihood, they're actually there at the beach cleaning the mess without realizing that there is a long-term impact, health impact, economic impact, ecological impact that this is going to have. So it's, it makes me really, really angry what the visuals we are seeing. It's completely disappeared from our conscience. And our state, both the state government as well as the central government, is absolutely irresponsible. I think people need to be jailed, should be asked difficult questions for such kind of an irresponsibility, because if this is how we are actually taking people and their lives, and by the way, we talk about thousands of lives that will actually be impacted because of this. So one is direct exposure because of the oil spill at the beach, at the coastline, and the food chain that we're talking about, hydrocarbons, benzene that gets into our system. And by the way, nobody even is talking about the amount of oil that is there in deep sea. We're only seeing the visible impact of this collision oil spill. Nobody's looking at the invisible impact as if it disappears and the issue is over. By the way, one last point, if you look at 30 years ago, when Bhopal gas happened, we said we've cleaned the mess. And this is the same thing that they're saying, that they've cleaned the mess. Cleaning the mess does not mean cleaning the oil or the coastline. It means a lot of work that they need to do, and not by the state-of-the-art machinery called bucket and gloves.
Absolutely. Captain Sandeep Kalia, you are the advisor to the Directorate of General Shipping. Tell us what's going wrong right now. Why is our government disappointing its people so badly? They're letting people down. They're allowing citizens to be poisoned.
Yeah, I advise Director General of Shipping on the call-out basis whenever there's an emergency or whenever my advice is sought. I'm Vice Chairman and Global Brand Ambassador of Oil Spill India, which our main job is to create awareness within the country and beyond on the hazards of oil spill, the procedures, our machinery which is in place. I want to give you a ground update, and I want to share it with the viewers that we had a site survey yesterday to check on the ground realities. And the oil has actually been thinning down. Most of the volunteers, the colleges, marine colleges and others have actually moved out from there. I think
Why were they called in to begin with?
I should thank Magicbricks Now for creating this awareness, and most of the people to whom we were telling the hazards of this kind of
But it's
incident.
not their job to do this. It's your job to do this.
I mean, of course, and we are still seeing the footage as of even
Yeah, and
today.
it hasn't fixed the problem.
The ground reality, there were more than 1,000 people when we met last time. Now there are around 350
No.
people.
So
there.
is the justification, Captain Kalia, that we were poisoning 1,000 people, but now we're only poisoning 300?
No, now
so the situation is obviously better.
Now the experts have come in.
Do they look like experts? Let's run that footage. And I want you to, as the expert, you are the expert here.
Yeah.
Look at that. Do these people look like experts to you? I see 4 orange overalls. 4 in that footage. Let's run closer shots of those people who are actually in veshtis and lungis, in gumboots. Tell me with your hand on your heart, Captain Kalia, is that the way to do it? Are those experts?
I'm not putting this thing on whatever we are seeing, the video clip. I'm giving you the ground realities. I'm not
This
favoring.
has been shot
I'm not
today.
favoring. I'm not
this
favoring
has been
anybody.
shot today.
However, there are still a lot of lapses. I'm acceding to that. I'm not saying if all is well. All is not well. We have learned some lessons in the past few days, and I think more learning and more awareness
it's
has
not
to
lots
come
of
by.
lapses. There's no priority at all.
And as far as the
So it's also unfortunate, Faye, that nobody from the state government should join these kind of debates. Anybody from the Public Health Department of Chennai. So I think that's a very...
Dr. Mehta?
The protective gear is got to be a complete face mask, a complete helmet, a complete body cover which is impermeable. What is happening, even those overalls are completely
even the
totally
orange ones
inadequate.
you're seeing, yeah,
so it is
they're inadequate.
absolutely completely wrong. And what is important, in some of the panelists have said that now that the oil spill has come ashore, the effect of this is going to be seen for years. The Bhopal gas tragedy, till today, the damage we continue to see. Similarly, this is going to be for years after all the the people have gone away. This is going to really be a big disaster. And in the Gulf now, in the Gulf where BP blew up, in US. They have started a study in the National Institutes of Health, which is following these people up for the next 20 years. I see no study, I see no doctor, and I see no efforts to take care of the health of these poor people and all the others, including the ecology and all the downstream effects. So I think really we need to get into this very, very big time. We're already late for it.
I'll just put in two points here.
Go ahead.
One is, I just got the information that the Director General of Shipping, Ms. Malini Shankar, actually visited the site and went to the ship which was breached and took a survey there, and along with the joint DG of Shipping. So that's a good gesture from the central government, from the commitment from the Director General of Shipping, which is not visible on the news or
You don't need gestures. Sorry, I take offense to this kind of a justification.
No, hang on. Vimelendu Jha, before anyone makes any sort of accusation that it is not visible on the news, we spoke with her yesterday when she was on this site. We asked her about protective gear, and my team is just pulling up that interview, so we're going to play that bite for our audience right now. We have it ready. She promised us protective gear that is not in place today.
That's sad. That's sad.
Now listen to that bite. Since you brought it up, let's listen to that bite. This is what she said yesterday.
If the fisherman's livelihood has been affected, it has to be assessed very systematically because we have to comply with maritime convention laws and there has to be a proper procedure in which they prefer their claims, perhaps and preferably through their fishermen's societies, and they will be compensated, and all the expenditure done for pollution control will be compensated. The insurers have agreed to compensate it.
Okay, and regarding the safety, not all are given the safety now. People who are involved in the cleanup, all of them are not having the necessary safety measures.
No, I think
so what
that
do you think?
situation may have been in the first few days. Right now, they are all in gumboots and gloves. And what we've said is volunteers now we don't need the volunteers just now. Initially, we were very, very, very thankful that so many people came in hordes to volunteer.
And she's thankful, she's not...
That is absolutely ridiculous and disrespectful that the DG Shipping is thankful that so many people came up and poisoned themselves without the access to the right information, that this is something that could cause you cancer. How can she, with any conscience, stand in front of the national media, Captain Sandeep Kalia, and say that we are thankful that people came forward? Are you telling me that she does not know the risks here? Or she doesn't care about the risks? Or she just thinks that, oh, good thing that the citizens came and used buckets, so that's less work for me? Which of the three is it?
See, I will not make any statement on behalf of the Director General of Shipping. It is her views and she is privy to her views. However, my very clear stand is what has happened is a mistake. Experts should have been engaged from day one, as of day before yesterday, not even yesterday. That's what I had said on the channel the last time we met. However, it has happened. Now it's a learning lesson. There is a plan in place. It was not executed properly.
Captain Kalia, this is the 75th oil spill off the coast of India, which I'm sure you know these statistics. Yes. 5 of those happened off the coast of Chennai. Why are we learning today?
We are not learning today.
Isn't there a manual in place? Don't we already have all of the equipment that we've talked about 3-4 times on this channel already? Why are we learning at the expense of the lives of fisher folk and civic workers, which I'm sure are freelance 500 rupees a day laborers who should be on construction sites, who have been given this the job as unskilled laborers? Why are we doing it at the risk of their lives? Do their lives not matter to the government of India?
They do. I'll give you a summation on this. As of a country, although we have had so many spills, we are still, if I may submit, at a nascent stage. Our oil practices, the drills...
Our Indian Navy is at a nascent... Our Coast Guard is at a nascent stage.
Everybody as
our
a country...
Our port authority is at a nascent stage.
Everybody is at a nascent stage because, I'll give you a reason, and maybe the viewers and the authorities listening may like to dwell on this. Our exercises mostly, I will not say all, are tabletop exercises. Sea is a dynamic place. You need to create real-life simulations at sea to practice and do the oil spill response actually at sea, and try and test your gears, run your machinery every now and then so they are not found defunct.
Ramachandra Menon.
I beg to differ a bit on that.
I want to hear from Ramachandra Menon, who spent most of his career at sea.
So with due respect to the DG office, I remember we were instructed when we were juniors also, this is the hazard of this, so you take preventive measures. So we were guided that time. So we followed those guidances. So there must be somebody at the helm of affairs who's executing it intelligently, that you don't use this. There are creams for that matter. It was elementary. Before and after doing this manual job, you can use creams which is resistant to these ill effects of this. So these are elementary things which has been bypassed.
After 75 spills, you're learning.
We can say that we are at a nascent stage, I think.
Yeah,
we should not.
I want to circle back. Vimelendu Jha, I want to circle back to that bite that we played out, that sound bite from the DG Shipping, who was obviously telling the media what she thought the media wanted to hear. Did she not think that we were going to go back the next day and actually check for ourselves that unskilled laborers are standing in the water with buckets again? Did she not think that the media would cross-reference what she's saying? Gumboots and gloves? Any doctor would tell her gumboots and gloves are not enough. So either she doesn't know how to do her job, or she thinks we don't know how to do our jobs.
I'd also like to add to.
Absolutely. And when Mr. Kalia right now said that it was an interesting gesture, As in we don't put people in the government at such responsible positions to really pass on gestures, but to do their job. And clearly she hasn't done her job properly, and right now she's misleading the entire country. She's a criminal by her act, by really pushing thousands of people into this toxic life that we're talking about. And also, Mr. Kalia, what's the role of experts like yourself to be assisting the government when we actually arrive to this position? Captain Kalia, why do we reach this far? People like yourself and everyone else, as in this lady and the DG, your job is to save, to really save us from situations like these, and not to just do great gestures. You guys are not paid for good gestures. You paid for your job fundamentally.
Vimelendu, if I may add to that, and again, see, we've seen over the past so many years and decades that there's no shortage of bureaucrats who've got away very lightly with just making gestures, or even so we don't end up punishing negligence as a rule, which has only emboldened bureaucrats or the state machinery or the government machinery or the environmental governance machinery to just take all of these things in a sense very lightly. The state of the environmental movement is in a bad state. Labor movement, I would say that there would have been labor unions or people, labor activists, who would have immediately woken up and said that you cannot use casual contractual labor in such a casual manner. So these are the kind of elements which end up adding to the DG shipping, making those kind of statements, which are really, in a sense, alarming and upsetting all of us.
No, I want to go to Captain Kalia. Respond to what Vimelendu Jha said. If we have experts, we have expertise. I know from our sources, that India has the money, India has the process, India has the equipment. None of that equipment is actually used, and none of it is actually operational. It is corruption and a lack of intent that we suffer from, not from a lack of information and not from a lack of experts. So answer Vimelendu's question about what are all the experts doing? Why are you leaving us at the mercy of politicians who obviously, if you flip through the television channels tonight, you will prove to you, do not care about poisoning their own citizens?
Yeah, what I would like to add here is, somehow our systems are process-driven. Why the experts were not engaged immediately? Because the company to which that breach ship belonged, who spilled the oil, had to contract a specialized organization, a oil spill response organization, which took time. Now, meantime, other people went to the beach, the Coast Guard and other authorities, I don't want to name anybody, they went to the beach and they started acting. The Coast Guard is the front line of defense for combating any kind of oil spill.
So
the state government has the machinery and should have acted immediately. It is not only on the center. We can just not blame anybody.
But roles and responsibilities
are very clearly defined.
It is defined, but it is not implemented. It's good on paper.
Situations like these need collective ownership and responsibility.
To figure out what the roles and responsibilities are when the crisis happens.
Ramachandra Menon, and I also want to point this out to our audience, the people who discovered the oil spill were fishermen who went out in their boats and then came back, and they had to tell the port authorities and the Coast Guard that, hey, listen, there is an oil spill. The Coast Guard didn't know. The port authority didn't know. Isn't it their job to monitor the waters?
The Ennore Port website is still caught up in January 28th press release, which says that there is nothing serious which has happened.
That is the duty of the ship. Yes. The duty of the ships to inform the port authorities that the fishermen had to find this leakage or spill is unfortunate, because the masters have to inform immediately about the spill to the ports and to the DPA of the concerned company, and that is the channel by which should act immediately. A chalta attitude has to be transformed into something active, preparedness.
There's no deterrence in a sense.
Preparedness is lacked, sir. I think.
I would ask a very straight question to Dr. Sanjeev Mehta. Dr. Sanjeev Mehta, there is a failure, a colossal failure here of various agencies. The Coast Guard, the port authorities, the state government, the central government, and the shipping authorities. I just want to ask you this question, Dr. Mehta, in your opinion, in your medical opinion, have these people collectively poisoned the citizens of Chennai?
Sure. Yes, I would have to agree there, because, there has to be responsibility. There has been poisoning of these people, and I think collectively the system has failed them. call it whatever you would, but clearly I agree with you, Faye. They have failed the people.
Vimelendu
it is a poisoning.
Vimelendu Jha, if the citizens of Chennai are being poisoned, shouldn't someone be hauled up?
Exactly, and that's where NGT right now has asked for a report. NGT is actually looking into this matter. But how much can judiciary do when our governance structures are so fractured? Our experts are here really, I don't want to use bad language, but they're out there to save the bureaucracy, the bureaucrats, rather than save the people. So it's a system that feeds, as you said, there's corruption, there's lack of ownership, and that's why we have reached this far. And imagine, by the way, by the way we've actually looked at this entire thing pan out, we don't know if something happens tomorrow, if something different, we'll deal with this differently. We'll come out with the buckets once again. We'll again say no oil spill once again. We'll just let people die. Look at how we respond to when something happens to a VIP versus here when something is happening to the poorest fishermen of Chennai or the poor fish and turtles of Chennai. Because we as a society, as a country, as governments, as governance structures, need to understand the impact and responsibility and accountability. But accountability, responsibility, ethics is not in the dictionary of our so-called shipping experts, our shipping bureaucrats and our politicians, and that's the reason why we have reached this far. Imagine everybody is saying that this is not a diarrhea-causing disease. This is a cancer-causing situation that we are talking about, and still nobody gives a damn.
Captain Kalia?
I will strongly object to the statement which was just made. We are professionals, we are not bureaucrats. And our job is to guide the government and the professionals how to execute their job, which has been done. Now,
sir, I was talking about the DG shipping. I was talking about DG shipping, not about you,
so tell me this. So tell me
DG
this.
shipping is out of the purview here. She went there and inspected the site. She showed her commitment. Beyond that, I don't want to make any comments because that is correct. To call them names and to accuse them.
No, that's not her commitment. Her commitment is not the visit. Her commitment is to fix the problem.
Are we aware
is not
whether
visiting and giving a sound bite, sir? Sorry, that's not governance.
I'm not going to comment on this. You may have your own views and you are privy to your own views. You don't know the ground realities. You don't know what's going on in the background.
The country is seeing on day 11, sir. The country is seing on day 11.
That's
what are you
where
talking
my concern
about?
comes in. I am with you on that, that people have been put up to a hazard. Have I ever denied that?
So Captain Kalia, you said that unfortunately for us in our country, a lot of the solutions are tabletop solutions, which means they remain on paper, they remain in discussion, they're never actioned.
Yes.
Why does that happen? If the experts are forming the solutions, why are they not finally in action? So it's not about the fact that we didn't react fast enough or the experts weren't called in fast enough. They should have already been a plan at the get-go. We should have a contingency plan. If there is an oil spill, this is step 1, step 2, step 3. Obviously, we don't have it. What is it? Is it corruption or is it a lack of intent?
We do have a plan.
Yes.
However, like I said, it's tabletop
We still
plans.
don't have it.
Now, when there is a tabletop and you don't actually...
Why is it still tabletop?
Because we do not practice. It's train, train, train and train. We should have an exercise every month at sea.
Why don't we practice?
So the chairman, managing director of the Ennore port, I think also should be speaking on this. I mean, what is the Ennore port? I mean, beyond the Coast Guard or the DG shipping or even Captain Kalia, I think the standard operating procedure is something which should be tightly ingrained into the port authorities. And I have not seen till now any port authority speaking. So is there been a clear lapse of duty or responsibility on part of the port authority? I think that is one figure which is missing out from the discussion adequately.
Yeah, R. Sundar is on the phone line from Chennai. He's a viewer who picked up the phone and called us. Mr. Sundar, go ahead. You're on the show.
My question is this. We have so many agencies for oil spill control. You have Coast Guard, which is supposed to be responsible. You have the port authorities, which is supposed to be responsible. You have all these agencies which are supposed to be responsible. I'm not sure, I don't know exactly the location where the oil spill took place, but definitely what I know is that if it happens in the deep sea, it is the responsibility of Coast Guard. It is not the responsibility of the port authorities at all. If it is near to the port, then the port comes into the picture. But here,
It is.
It is 2 nautical miles from the port.
Who is supposed to be responsible?
Who's responsible?
The responsibility is not fixed at all. There is no team which is supposed to be responsible. And therefore, the port authorities and the Ennore port, in fact, is, most of the contracts they have given.
Sundar, tell me this. You live in Chennai. You're calling us from Chennai right now. 3 days ago, when we had a representative of the ruling party, the AIADMK, on the show, we recommended to her use local FM channels and the newspapers and radio and communicate to citizens that the fish is dangerous, that the water is dangerous, and you should not be volunteering without a full gear. Has that been done? Have you heard anything of that sort of advisory in Chennai at all as a citizen?
No, hardly anything. In fact, as you rightly said, the news is always about politics because that is the one that is on focus, that is the one which is topmost in the minds for everybody, because that's what is spoken by everybody. That's fine. But the important aspect that no health hazard has been given at all, no great warning has been given to anybody, no great awareness has been created. Absolutely, it's dismal. It's as though that something has happened in some corner of the city. It doesn't concern anybody. It's not a big problem. It's under control. There's nothing to worry about. And life goes on as usual. An alarming situation is not really been raised by anybody. There are so many you have environment department, you have so many other agencies, but we have not had any kind of advisory given at all, number one. Number two is, I would definitely like to know an answer on who is supposed to be responsible for this oil spill containment. Because every time, I know that there are so many...
Who's responsible? That's a good question. We'll get you.
Authorities.
It's the Port Authority.
It's clearly the Port. I think it's clearly
Captain
the Port
Kalia,
Authority.
it's the Port
it's 2
Authority.
nautical miles, and Captain Kalia will bear me out. If I'm wrong, he can correct me. But it's 2 nautical miles from the port. 2 nautical miles off the port. They were both entering. One ship was entering the port and one was exiting, and this is when it has happened. So maybe Captain Kalia can enlighten us more on that.
Like I said, the Indian Coast Guard is the frontline defense authority when there is any pollution incident at sea. And they contain the oil, they have to contain the oil within the sea. The port authorities are, of course, responsible. The NOS DCP has listed out more than 20 agencies, including the Environment Ministry, the Pollution Control Board,
there has
the
to be
ports
one lead agency, right? Otherwise, everybody will keep
it must at the end of the day, on paper, there must be somebody's responsibility. Pin it down for us, Captain.
Anytime a crisis happens, you establish a war room, then there has to be a command center and the whole hierarchy which has to be clearly, and which authority will play out, which will report to which authority, because otherwise everybody will keep waiting.
Is it the Coast Guard, Captain Kalia?
The Coast Guard is a nodal agency, yes.
It is the Coast Guard. It is the Coast Guard's responsibility, and the Coast Guard in this case, and I will say it, has failed to a point where we are now willfully poisoning the citizens of Chennai. Swapnil Kothari is on the phone line. Swapnil, go ahead.
Yes, Faye. When I look at this situation, I think of Article 48A of the Constitution, which spells out that the state shall endeavor to protect its citizens and the environment from any wildlife, damage, etc., and the environment as well. That is one of the fundamental duties as prescribed in the Directorate Principles of the state policy. The state has entirely failed to do so. It is right now worried about whether Sasikala is an appropriate chief minister or not. That is one. Number two, the Environmental Protection Act 1986 also stipulates certain provisions which bounds the state, or rather which binds the state to do certain things necessary to protect the environment. Thirdly, the Oil Spill Act, or Oil Pollution Act of 1990, which was there in the United States, that clearly spells out the U.S. Coast Guard's duty. Here, as one of your panelists pointed out, that the Indian Coast Guard is the nodal agency to clear this oil spill. What has the Indian Coast Guard done as far as this aspect is concerned? What happened about the polluter pays principle as far as the international environmental law is concerned? Why am I bringing in international environmental law? Simply because India is a signatory to the Basel Convention on the transboundary movement of hazardous wastes. That convention was enacted at that point in time to ensure that no hazardous wastes are transmigrated.
Actually, Swapnil Kothari, since you are, I'm told, by my producer that you're a senior lawyer, I have a very basic question for you. The workers that we see right now on our screens are being paid 500 rupees a day, which means, in my opinion, they're unskilled workers who ought to be on construction sites, who've been brought down to the beach. They've told our reporter, they've been given gloves, caps and boots and gumboots. They do not have the protective gear to save their lives. They are currently being poisoned on television as we can see them right now. Do they not have rights as citizens? Do they not have rights as workers? I see a child. I see a child in that footage exposed to that sludge. Do these people not have rights? Does the Constitution not protect them in any way?
It does. In fact, the people who are responsible for sending these workers or under whom these workers work should collectively file a writ petition in the Supreme Court of India under Article 32 for protection of their lives, because the right to life is a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution of India. If they were to do that, then this is something the Supreme Court would immediately pull up the state of Chennai to ensure that these people do not work under such hazardous conditions. It is the polluter pays principle.
What's called as a class action suit in the US. I mean, you need to move that.
We need to move that. And you know, I just want to point that out, Rishi, that young man who was just talking to our reporter, does he by any stretch of imagination look to you like an expert or a qualified professional who should be cleaning up an oil slick?
Absolutely. I think, Faye, right in the beginning I've said that it is really shocking the kind of footage that you're showing. And these are people who are innocent people who are not scientifically, who are not educated at all, forget knowing the science about benzene and carcinogens, etc. And all that they know is that they are hired by a contractor and they have to go to a labor site and do the work which is for which they are paid, and they have to work for 8 hours and go back home. But again, Faye, I just want to highlight one more point. There are two important authorities we are completely letting go. One is the Chennai Municipal Corporation and the other is the Home Department. I think it is clearly, I mean, whatever happens at the sea, we might figure out which of these 18 agencies were responsible for the delay, etc. But those people who are going onto the beach are not entering from the seaside. They're not coming from Myanmar.
What about the Environment Ministry and the Pollution Control Board?
So this is the complete negligence of the Chennai Municipal Corporation and the police, which is under the Home Department. We are always very worried about terrorists coming in from Pakistan, etc. And that is a big preoccupation for the Home Department. We are not worried about this. Is exactly, actually, you can call it eco-terrorism going on, and we are exposing.
So what you're saying, Rishi, let me say this again. Let me say this again.
By bullets.
That there is a lot of fishing that happens off the coast of Chennai. Now we're talking about Chennai, Pondicherry, that entire coastline. And that fish gets driven into the rest of the country. So people in Bangalore, people in Hyderabad, people across the south who are buying fish, do you know where it's coming from?
Also, Faye, this opportunity needs to be highlighted. I think 3-4 days back, Amitav Ghosh's new article has come up. The whole of Bay of Bengal is dying. So that is the huge the huge crisis that we are facing in terms of the Bay of Bengal itself. So this is in a sense reduced to a very small thing. And in the recent days...
Rishi, I'm going to interrupt you because I just want to play out, and for those of our viewers who might have just joined us, I want to play out these responses from the workers one more time, because it is really upsetting me that we are not getting anywhere. And I thought we got somewhere after our last show with the state government, but we've gotten nowhere. And I'm going to play this one more time so that someone from the government realizes what you're doing and takes your job more seriously, for heaven's sake. Play out those bites so that people can watch it one more time.
Gloves கொடுத்தாங்க, cap கொடுத்தாங்க, gumboot கொடுத்தாங்க. அதான் அவள்ட்ட கொடுத்துருக்காங்க.
ஓகே, இப்போ இது உடம்புல படும்போது இது வந்து கஷ்டமா இருக்கு.
இந்த இடத்துல பட்டிருக்குமா லைட்டா எரியுது.
உள்ள போனா மேல படு லைட்டா மூச்சு திணறல் வருது. கை குளிச்சாதான் போதானா. 2 நாள் அது அப்படியே போகும்.
இதனால நோய்கள் வரும் அப்படினு சொல்றாங்க. அத பத்தி உங்களுக்கு
அவங்க எதுமே சொல்லல. அத பத்தி
எந்த அவேர்னஸ் எதுவுமே சொல்லல.
கை க்ளோஸ் ஒரு ஷூஸ் மட்டும் தான் சொன்னாங்க. இது கஷ்டம்னா வேலை ஒர்க்கர் செய்ய சொல்றாங்க, செய்யறோம்.
உங்களுக்கு ஏதாவது சொன்னாங்களா இந்த மாதிரி நம்ம வந்து கேப் போடணும், க்ளவுஸ் போடணும், அந்த மாதிரிலாம் சொல்லியிருந்தாங்க?
அதாவது கேப் போடணும், க்ளவுஸ் போடணும், ஷூ கொடுத்தாங்க. மேலே எதுவும் ஜக்கிங் எதுவும் தரல.
அதெல்லாம் தாண்டி கூட உங்க மேலே படுதில்ல ஆயில்?
ஆமாம், மேலே படுது ஆயில்.
அது உடம்புக்கு நல்லது இல்லைன்னு உங்களுக்கு தெரியுமா?
தெரியாதுங்களா.
அது வந்து கேன்சர் அந்த மாதிரி நோய், நிறைய நோயெல்லாம் வர்றதுக்கான வாய்ப்பு இருக்காது ஸ்கின்ல படுச்சு.
அது எதுவுமே சொல்ல கூட்டின்னு வந்துட்டாங்க.
So that young person, who is a hired unskilled laborer, said that when The oil touches his skin, it burns. When he walks closer to the water, he cannot breathe because of the fumes coming out of the water. That it takes days to wash the oil off, that after they go home and have a bath, the oil is not coming off. He said that they've been given boots and they've been given gloves, but they haven't been given, he said, use the word jerkin, they haven't been given any sort of jackets, they haven't been given any sort of protective gear. This is the conscience with which people are cleaning up this oil slick. That oil is dangerous. It is poison. It will give these people cancer. Let's stop being preoccupied with the politics and actually do our jobs. Ramachandra Menon, you saw those. I mean, I apologize for being upset today. I'm surprised nobody else is this upset. And it's not stopping. I don't understand why it's not stopping.
Very much, Faye. You're rightly upset, and so am I, because it's pathetic. It's pathetic. You can have an overall which covers you head to toe, and there are masks available, and you can apply some sort of a protective cream or something. It is there. I don't know the brand names, but I remember that. You apply it before entering those places if you're going barefooted or bare-handed.
You can apply any kind of oil, even coconut oil if it is available. You know, just
this should be instructed to them. Somebody has to, he very clearly said, "I've not been told about this as such."
Human life is cheap.
That is very bad. This is Chalta attitude. Which is to be driven out of our system somehow or the other. It's very pathetic. The site is very pathetic. And I am also wondering, what is the action being taken right now to clean up, besides this manual efforts? Hats off to these guys who are doing it.
Stop the manual efforts. I don't understand why they just won't stop the manual efforts.
What is the action?
Also, what we are not seeing is, like, again and again, Mr. Ramachandran has been mentioning the whole usage of the bacterial this thing to degrade. I don't see the scientists in place at all. Where are the scientists? We should be interviewing the scientists. There should be a scientific team at the site which should be maybe spraying this kind of a bacterial thing to degrade the sludge. I think those are the kind of steps. And when we have the technology available, then why are we going for human intervention at all in the first place? I mean, they should stop, in a sense, from tomorrow itself. When you show and your cameras go to the site, they should see not a single person out there with buckets, gloves and gumboots over there at all. I mean, if after...
And we're going to go back over and over again. I also have Sudharaman, who's on the phone line from Chennai. He's another citizen who's called us in before we... From Bangalore. Sudharaman, go ahead. From Bangalore, we can hear you.
Yeah. One point. The captain of the ship, where the spill happened, he should have been the first person to report to the port authorities.
Yes.
He has failed in his search.
He has failed, and he has not been hauled up. He has not been hauled up.
No, he has been,
even the
a complete report should be submitted. I think by the end of this month, the complete report should be out.
That is procedural.
You know, I want to ask Captain Kalia this. Captain, we understand that there are several private agencies, and these private agencies were used during the spill off the coast of Mumbai. There are private agencies that have the gear, they have the engineers, they have the equipment, they have everything. They just have to be called in and they'll do the job. Why haven't the private agencies been called in up till now, whom we know from past experience can do the job? Why is the government still using fisher folk when we have the ability to clean up? What's wrong in this chain? Why are we being stingy? Do we not want to do it? What's wrong?
The problem lies in contractual signing. See, as per the procedures, the ship owner has to engage a P&I club, which will appoint a professional agency. This process has been going on for a few days. I think yesterday or day before the contract has been awarded to the private agency. The delay was possibly from either side. I don't know. I don't want to comment on how the delays happened, but it should have been done in the first place.
Can't the government contract the private agency?
The government can, but our national laws are not so strong to immediately put it out because there is no fund in the kitty. They can imply and recover the expenses from the ship owner.
Our government doesn't have the money.
However, it is not happening because, see, I'll tell you, the disaster and contingency management is the state responsibility. However, this is still not incorporated in the Merchant Shipping Acts. Once it is done, the state, the ports will be empowered to immediately hire the contractual agencies and later recover the dues. So the systems and processes, incidentally, are a little slow. And I think it should speeden up the process, and the ports should have the authorities to immediately contract experts.
My worry is also, Faye, that when Captain Kalia speaks like this, we have 10 to 15 big ports along the coastline. And I don't know whether, is this the same state of preparedness for all of these ports? I mean, they are massive ships, much bigger than these ships, moving in and out of Paradeep and Mangalore and Kandla. And I mean, it seems quite unimaginable to think that possibly this would be the same state of affairs. At one point, you just want to stop discussing the issue altogether?
See, there are 12 major ports in the country and 144 minor ports. The Mumbai Port Trust has already put out a contract, and there is the oil spill responders in place. The government has issued statute that every port should have Tier 1 level response system in place. Tier 1 is 700 meter cubes of oil. The equipment for containing 700 meter cubes of oil is a statute passed by the government some early 2010 and 12. Now it is the states and the ports who have to put it in practice.
So Ennore Port did not put this in practice, are we saying? I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking.
Okay, I've run out of time right now and I have to wrap up the show, but I have never been this disappointed in our government, whether state or central, Coast Guard or Port Authority, for what they have been doing in Chennai. There has never been a clearer example of the lack of responsibility of government agencies and government towards citizens. They had to do very simple things. Come out and say, don't touch the water. Put out a police line and say, you cannot cross this line. You have to stay off the beach. Tell women with children not to go and watch the cleanup, which we saw is happening today, 11 days after that spill. Hire an agency to simply do the job, or if you can't do any of these things, provide the gear that is necessary to keep these workers safe. Have you no conscience? Did you think that the media would not find out? Did you think we would not highlight this story? I have news for you. We are going to stay on this story like a leech on your back until you get it right. And then we will make sure that somebody is held responsible for the lives of the people on that beach right now, because you obviously don't care. We do. And I don't care if we have to do this night after night after night until we get some sort of justice. But I want that state-of-the-art bucket and glove sort of cleaning up to stop immediately, because it's obviously not safe for anyone. And stop getting distracted by the power struggle. Thanks for watching.
You can watch live TV on our website mpnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Magicbricks Now. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at Magicbricks Now. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/Magicbricks Now.